So what is due process? And that was a question I had many years ago. I started with the police department in 2000. And then in 2008, I started to hear some things about the Constitution. And I wanted to know exactly what it was. And what it was in 2008, there was a lot of talk about the Constitution and so forth. And then they started to be something that they call sovereign citizens and so forth. So I started to look into this, and I started reading up on the Constitution a little bit. And then one day, um, I also get invited to an event, and I walk into this event, and this guy is just rolling off the Constitution off the tip of his tongue. And in that seminar, he brings up Article 5, or the Fifth Amendment, and it says no person can be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. So I was like, wow, what is due process of law? Then I started to look into it. I was like, damn, what did I even swear to? I knew I'm a sworn officer, but I actually really started looking at what I swore to. I asked around the department, I asked other people, I said, what did we swear to? Nobody. I asked over 100 officers. Not a single one could answer what we had swore to. So then I started looking myself, right? And then I'm like, okay, we swore to the Constitution. But the trip about it is I go to the academy, I took 29 different written tests, all kind of physical tests, but not one class, not one of them was regarding the Constitution. So that really started to bother me, life, liberty, or property. Now at the time, I'm on bike patrol. That was my favorite position. I was on bike patrol at LAX. And LAX has all these outer parking lots. And I go every single day. There was like an impound a day. We used to state this: an impound a day keeps the sergeant away. So he wanted so many greenies. So we called them greenies. These are cites. So we would go around the parking lot, look for whatever citations that we could. I would do one every few hours. Then I go back to the station and hit some weights because I was really, really big back then. So I just wanted to keep the sergeant away. I used to get like 2 workouts a day. I'm riding around the airport all day. And then I would come back. And if you got one impound a day, it totally keeps the sergeant away. So I'm over here doing this every day. And then I get to, well, what is due process? And now in my mind, I'm like, okay, due process hasn't been met yet. So I'm taking people's cars out the parking lot, and I'm starting to wonder, what is due process? They said nobody's stuff can be taken with nobody's property. No life, liberty, or property cannot be taken without due process of law. So how am I taking this individual's car? So I go over to my sergeant and I said, hey, Sarge, we're over here taking people's car and everything else. I done read in the Constitution that says I can't take anybody's items without life. I cannot take their life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Do you know what due process of law is, Sarge? And he's like, what? Due process? I don't know, Roseanne, but hey, man, whatever you worried about, don't worry, man. The city got you covered. All right, but do you have an answer? Like, do you know what due process is? That's all I want to know. Sorry. Nah, Roseanne, just go back to work, man. Okay. So then I go to the lieutenant. Hey, Lieutenant, do you know what due process is? Tell him I'm reading in the Constitution. I swore an oath that I cannot take anybody's life, liberty, or property without due process. He's like, nah, but I try to get you an answer. So next thing, he can't give me an answer. So the next thing I go, now they sending me over to the city attorney. I'm asking the city attorney, I just want to know, I'm not asking am I acting correctly or anything else. I don't need no legal determinations. I just need to know what due process of law is so I know it's being given before I take anybody's life, liberty, or property. So do you know what due process of law is? City attorney, she can't answer the question. So that answer, I never even got the answer. And to this day, I never got the answer. But here's one unique thing working at LAX that it gave me. And we worked with multiple agencies at LAX. And we used to work with the FBI. And when you would work with the FBI, it's like it works like this on an airplane. If the airplane door is closed, it's in flight, FBI handles that. That's federal jurisdiction. But when the airplane is, like say it's at the tarmac, and if the doors open and the crime occurs, now it becomes city. and then that's the city's jurisdiction, and then us as LAXPD would take over. So on this one event that I want to refer to, I'm sitting there. FBI gets called to the call. We get a call of some type of assault on a juvenile, with some drunk individual, and the plane is coming in. And he does an assault on a juvenile. So the plane comes in, and we obviously we get called to the gate. TSA gets called to the gate. FBI comes on the scene, and so the two agents with the FBI take the lead of the call. And then, so what I see is, guy gets off drunk. We have about 4 flight attendants. We have the juvenile, her father, and then the suspect there. So we have to sit back and interview everybody. So then at that point in time, FBI is he's sitting there writing everybody's stuff down. He's getting now he's actually doing affidavits, and they can administer the oath. I believe the agents could, and then they're actually getting affidavits from all the individuals. Now we have this guy who the suspect, our subject at this time, but he's the suspect. I'm sorry, suspect. He's they want to detain him, but it's going to take a while. So the FBI is like, we got to get all these affidavits. So I'm watching them. They're getting all their reports, putting it all together, and they're speaking to everybody. And then they tell me, they says, can you take this guy back to the station and just hold him at your guys? We have a holding cell, and they said, can you guys hold him in the holding cell because we got to get all these affidavits together, and then we're going to seek to go get an arrest warrant. And I said, well, I'm thinking, how can we hold him? And they're like, well, he's drunk. So since he's drunk, just take him for drunk in public, hold him in the tank, and we should be done in a few hours. So both the agents, they go ahead, handle everything. They write like 8, 9 affidavits from everybody that's there. And then later on, I'm sitting at the station just waiting with the guy. Then later on, the agents call me and say they were able to speak to whoever they speak to. I'm not exactly sure. But then they got an arrest warrant issued. Some magistrate or whatever judge they speak to. So the judge takes a look at everything, takes a look at an affidavit. So now they have the probable cause. So that's like due process. So they have probable cause for the arrest. The arrest warrant is issued. Now he calls me up and says, hey, we got this. Can you just transport the body? Because the guy is drunk. We have a cage car. So he's like, transport the body down to the federal courthouse, or to the federal jail downtown Los Angeles. So I go ahead and drive him down there. We get down there, and federal prison, if you're going to end up having to go, is much nicer than the state. But we get down there, and then that's what I see. I'm like, okay. In my mind, I'm like, that's due process. You see what I'm saying? The guy didn't go to jail until after that fact. But all the other times, I don't see due process being done. When the police walk up to people in the street or whatever happens, is that due process. Yeah, maybe the officer says you did something wrong, but where's the due process? See, and that's what I couldn't understand. So I remember when I kept asking these questions and nobody could answer it. Then eventually I was pulled to the side by one of my lieutenants, and he's like, look, Rodney, you over here messing up the cha-cha. He's like, we got tow one. There's a thing called tow one that they had at LAX, and we used to get on the radio, and it's a contract. So with tow one, it's a contract that we have where tow one, he gets so many cars, it's just assigned to LAX. So they're like, Roseanne, you over here? He says, you effing up the cha-cha. And I'm like, nah, sorry, I'm just asking about due process. I want to know that we follow on our oaths. I want to know that this is correct. And to this day, nobody could get it. Nobody could get it at all. And the one thing, as I was speaking to some of the people I know, they's like, you speaking at a different level than the other police officers. They can't even understand that vibration level to understand what I'm asking. All they see is they just say, go back in the field. The city attorney got you. Don't worry about it. We'll cover you, whatever happens. But they still, the meat and potatoes, the answer never got answered. What is due process of law? And I can go to any police officer, any station right now, and it clearly says that that's what the Constitution says, but it hasn't been done. And then I start to, yeah, so yeah, it just hasn't been done. So that's the crazy part about it. And, you know, later on, I started talking about this all the time at work. I was spreading the news. I'm telling officers to read their oath. And then, a couple of years later, I was fired. Then I had to defend myself and I got reinstated, but I was fired because they was like, he got to get out of here. He's making them, I was making the police officers start to think, and they wasn't thinking. It was like, there's like I remember this movie where they're talking about the different facets of people, and they had some that were farmers, some that were police officers and everything else. I think the Dauntlesses or something like that. And so that's where the police officers like kind of is at that level. They can't think on a higher level, and all they care about is what they can be defended on. And but they don't think about, okay, if I'm supposed to give due process, did I give due process? And that's really deep. So I just wanted to share that with you guys today. And then I was, like I said, by being with both agencies, I saw the way the LAXPD treated certain things, but then I saw the way the federal people, the federal side did it. And I actually started to think, I'm like, that looks right. See, the person doesn't get taken according to them. On the federal side, that guy never got brought in front of a judge until he had the facts and the evidence and a neutral arbitrator to issue the arrest warrant, not vice versa. So you ever felt like I could be walking through the park right now, LA County Sheriff just roll up and then they arrest me, and then they say I'm innocent until proven guilty? Well, my liberty, life, liberty, or property cannot be taken without due process of law. So if the deputy rolls up and is just having a bad day and decides to put me in jail, has there been due process? That's all I would say. Has there been due process? All right, so, those are just thoughts. Those are things, and I wish I would have put it, and one thing I always talk about now is taking court to the streets. And I wish I would have had that in writing and going back and forth with my sergeants and lieutenants, because it's only from what I can, I didn't write it down. I didn't have my method at that point in time of making a record, because I would have did an official notice up the chain of command. Hey, I'm an officer. I saw it says this in the Constitution, and I see that we're taking people's life, liberty, and property every single day, and I want to know what due process is. Can y'all please explain it for the record? And then they would have had to. But that's what they they don't need that in the police department. It's kind of funny, you know. Um, Sometimes I don't even know if they want you following the law. They just want you to do and move. So, all right, like and subscribe, and I'll be going over a lot more. You can also go to my website at Ward, that's WORD, WARS 101.org. I have a lot of practice manuals. I have numerous grievances, paperwork going back and forth with the city, and I just have to put it all together, and it's all going to be posted onto the website so you can see the exact processes. You can see the taking the court to the streets. You can see exactly how to build a proper record for your protection when something does happen to you and your family. So, all right, like and subscribe. Peace.